Hi everyone, welcome to Gilbhub TV. I'm going to talk about BRX today. Now if you don't know what BRX is, it is a business development and networking group which I'm a part of. And as part of my membership, I got the opportunity last week to do a 10-minute presentation, which I was nervous about but also very excited because it was the first 10-minute presentation like this that I'd ever done. And the topic was me and my work and what I do. And when I thought about it, I realised that my work really is delivering messages. So whether I'm copywriting for someone or I'm presenting to camera like I am right now, I'm essentially helping people to deliver their message, whatever that might be. So I thought that's what I'll do my 10 minutes about. And to make it really helpful for everyone, I decided to email round ahead of time and ask the group what it was that they struggled with when it came to delivering their message. So again, whether it be in writing or person to person or presenting, I wanted to know what difficulties people had so that I could help to answer them in my presentation. So I'm going to share this 10-minute presentation with you now. I filmed it all, so it's all there. I will ask you to excuse the terrible camera angle. I was a little bit preoccupied in the morning with setting up everything for the actual 10 minutes. So the camera angle is kind of side on, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me clearly and get a feel for what I was saying anyway. So because I only had 10 minutes, I'm actually going to make a series of blog articles which are going to address the different points that came up in the group. So hopefully you'll find those useful, but for now, get comfy and enjoy my 10-minute presentation. Okay, so you don't need to be able to really read this, because I'm going to talk through it anyway, but can everyone see that just about?
Yep.
Is at the right angle? Okay. So, you all know what I do because I've been here before and I've stood up each week and told you I am a copywriter and a presenter. And when I think about that, really, what those two things are, the essence of it, is helping people to deliver their message. And I hinted at this last week in my 60 seconds. What I really do, whether it's talking to a camera or writing a piece for a blog or for a website, is help people to deliver a message, whatever it is that they're trying to say, but perhaps don't really know the right words to use. So I was thinking about how to apply this to a 10 minutes, this being the first networking 10 minutes that I've ever done. And I had a word with Dexter Moscow, who a lot of you had said I should speak to because he's in the presenting world, and you all said that he was such a nice man, and he really is a very nice man. He bought me an apple juice and gave me lots of advice. Yeah.
What a smooth.
And Dexter, he reminded me of something which I am kind of aware of already and use and in fact advise my clients of on a regular basis with copywriting, but which I hadn't really thought of to apply to this. And that's that really the engagement with an audience is all based around solving their problems. So the first thing I will say to someone if I'm writing a marketing email for them is what is the struggle that your client is going through? What is it that's their pain points? What is it that they really hate having to deal with on a day-to-day basis? And how can we solve that problem for them? And I hadn't really thought about it in this way, but that's what Dexter said I should do with my 10 minutes. So I emailed everyone and said, what are your struggles when it comes to copywriting or really delivering your message in whatever way you do? And thankfully, lots of people came back to me. I was prepared to make it up and say that people had if they hadn't, but people actually did. So thank you very much for all your help with that. I got more responses than I'm going to have time to talk about today, so I'm going to go through just 3 of them if I can get it into the 10 minutes. For those of you who I don't address in this session, I'm going to actually write blog articles to answer your questions, and those will be up online as well. So the first one was a great suggestion, which is the perfect 60 seconds, how to write and deliver the perfect 60 seconds. And obviously that's something that we all have to think about every week. And so I've got some top tips here. Obviously, I'm not making any judgment on anyone's 60 seconds in particular, but if you feel like it's something that you struggle with or you hate the fact that you have to come up with it each week, maybe this will be helpful. So the first thing is plan it, don't wing it. And this is something that I'm guilty of, and I'm sure we're all guilty of, first thing in the morning when it's really early and you think, oh, I say this every week, I don't really have to think about it. And then you get there and you stand up and you go, oh, what is it I do again? What's my name? And I did this, in fact, today. So just obviously on purpose to show you what I mean, I stood up and I forgot to say what my referrals were for this week. And it's just something that takes you by surprise, I think, when you have to stand up in front of people. So take a minute to plan it, even if it's going to be the same every week, and then you'll know what you're doing when you get to it. A good format to use is name, job, company, so who you are and what you do, then a key bit of information sandwiched in the middle along with your referral request, and then the repetition at the end of name, job, company again. It sounds quite simple, but it's a good format for keeping things within the 60 seconds. I would say for the key information, if you're talking to the same people again and again and again, as a lot of us are, you might not keep that the same every week. You might switch that up. So it might be 3 of your most key skills from what you do, or it might be a testimonial from something you've done recently, or it might be a special offer that you've got, or something that's particularly relevant right now. But whatever you use as that filling in the sandwich, I would say keep it top level. Don't go into lots and lots of detail. Don't list everything that you do in your whole company. Don't talk about every in and out of a project that you've just done. Just keep it top level. Say, we helped this person, they were struggling, we helped them out, it was great, end of story. The idea is to keep people wanting more. So the idea is that people will come back to you after the 60 seconds and ask more questions if they have questions. You don't need to actually tell them everything in that 60 seconds, because people are quite tired in the morning, and if the coffee hasn't really kicked in yet, people will switch off if you go on for too long. The next one was writing concise content and a less is more kind of attitude. And it's interesting because problem 2 and problem 3 are complete opposites of each other. So this was problem 2, and the person was struggling with writing content which was concise and clear and punchy and got to the point, and they were finding that instead of doing that, they were often waffling and becoming a bit too descriptive and going into a bit too much detail and going off on tangents. And this is something that I think comes with a lot of people from writing the way that you think or writing the way that you speak. And there are pros and cons to it. So if you sit down to write and you write in this way, you tend to get quite a natural flow. You don't really end up getting stuck over each word. You end up just kind of brain splurging basically through the keyboard onto the computer. And that's great for getting things going, getting things moving. It's better than sitting there going, all right, so the first word is this, and then and that, and oh no, that doesn't sound good, oh, we'll start again, and get nowhere. So this kind of writing is great for getting things out, but it can end up a little bit waffly. So step 1 to solve this problem would be to plan it. I have a couple of blogs and videos and things online if anyone's interested, but different ways of planning might be a spider diagram format, or it might be having some bold headings in your Word document and some bullet points, and then you can just follow that and tick it off as you go. And then even if you're waffling and going off on different things, you've got a path to follow. You're not going to completely lose track of where you are. Then I would say write it naturally. So once you've got your plan, follow your plan, but write it in the way that feels comfortable to you. So if that is just brain dumping onto the page, then do that. Then go away, come back and read it out loud. So don't edit straight after you've written it, because you'll still be in that kind of zone. Go away, do something else, make a cup of tea, do something boring, admin-y, whatever you need to do, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes. And if you don't have someone to give it a second pair of eyes and actually proof it for you, the next best thing, if you can, is to read it out loud. If you're in a shared office, I appreciate that's a bit more difficult, because you can look like a bit of a lunatic. But I'm at home on my own, and so if you do have the luxury to read it out loud like I do, then that's something that's really, really worth doing, because it's the next best thing to having someone else read it. It takes a different part of your brain to say things out loud than it does to read things in your head, and quite often if you're reading things in your head, you will make up the gaps in a sentence automatically, and you won't necessarily realise that there are mistakes there, because your brain just skips across it because you know what you meant. If you read it out loud, you'll stumble and you'll kind of catch yourself where things are slightly off, and it really, really helps to proof. It's something that I always do. So, for example, this is a couple of sentences from a blog article that I did recently, and I'll just read it out for you. This is a draft. So, if you were chatting to someone over a beer, you wouldn't just talk about yourself. Listening to someone talk only about themselves can become boring, so you'd soon find the conversation running dry. Social media works in the same way. This is something that's a little bit more than it needs to be, so I edited this down to, if you were chatting to someone over a beer, you wouldn't just talk about yourself. If you did, you'd soon find the conversation running dry. Social media works in the same way. So what I found was that I'd said the same thing twice, basically, in different ways, so I cut out the second sentence. So if you are going back and reading it out loud and thinking about what you can edit out, just look for places where you've said the same thing in 2 different ways and cut one of them out, choose the best one, and keep that nice and punchy. The next problem was interesting because it was the complete inverse of that. So this person was struggling to not write enough. They were just doing bare bones and struggling to make it expressive. So as an opposite of the other way of thinking, I think if you write like this, you're probably the kind of person who agonises over every single word and finds that an hour's passed and they haven't got past the first sentence. So it's a case of loosening up in this case. The pro of this is probably that you're going to end up with something really nice at the end of it, and perhaps not so much editing time, but it is going to take you a long time to get there. So step one, if you're this kind of writer, would be to write the bare bones. So again, do what comes naturally to you, and if that is just doing a few bullet points and sentences that don't sound very nice, but get the message across, get that out on paper first of all. Then go back and imagine that you're talking to a friend about it. So if you're advertising a service or describing something that you do online, on a blog maybe, or on a website, think about what you would say if your friend said to you, what's so great about this service? Presumably, if you're writing about your own business, it is something that you're passionate about, so you should have some ideas. But try and get into that flow of conversation of trying to actually express it, whether it's out loud or whether it's on paper. Just think about it as if it were a personal conversation and don't worry about the tone. Then, once you've done that, take just the points from that process and write them in the necessary style. So it might not be appropriate to write it in a chatty conversational way, you might need to be a bit more corporate or keep within your brand guidelines, but try and take just the nuggets of information from it and write it up in the appropriate way. Also, there is no shame in the synonym finder in Word. That's something that I use quite a lot if I'm getting tired, if it's a Friday afternoon. I consider myself to have quite a good vocabulary, of course, for what I do. But if it's late in the day, late in the week, I'm knackered, I've been writing all week, I use the synonym finder and I'm proud to say that I do. So if you're looking for descriptive ways of saying something and perhaps you're using the same words over and over again, you think this is really dry, just right-click synonyms, thesaurus, and find something more exciting to say. Another good way of doing that is to list adjectives. So if you're actually going back in your editing phase of this, you've been through, you've got your nuggets of information, and you're working out a nice, elaborate way of saying it, is to list adjectives. So if you said that your experience was an interactive experience, you could try a truly immersive interactive experience. So just listing a couple of things can make a sentence a lot more exciting. And then a good way of doing that is to, again, read it out loud to judge the pace of it. And if you feel like you've got too many of these sentences where it's all just lots of lists of adjectives and flowery words, mix it up with some short sentences. So something nice and elaborate and something that really paints a picture, followed by a short, punchy 2 or 3 line sentence can really have a good impact on the person that's reading. Last tip, if you're doing this kind of writing and you're looking for ways to really connect with the person that is reading, is to use sensory words. So things that relate to our senses of touch, taste, sound, sight. So things like velvety, prickly, sour, refreshing, dazzling, bleary, musty, spicy. These are all words which appeal to the senses, so when we read them, we feel something. And that's really good for just connecting again with the person that's reading and making them experience something as they're reading. And even though these are things that you might think of on the top level as words you would use to describe food or smells and things, they can actually be used metaphorically as well. So you might have a dazzling event, or you might have a refreshing website design. You can use these kinds of things in lots of different ways. So I'm going to be a bit sneaky because although I only have 10 minutes, and how much have I got left of that? I'm done, okay. Although I only had 10 minutes, I'm actually going to put this into a blog article as well, and I have recorded it so it will be on video too. And if you will allow me, I'm going to tag some people in it who helped me come up with the content for this and just say thank you. So it will be online, and anything that I haven't addressed, I will address in other blog articles. Any questions?